Good evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be telling you all about all the books that I read in December and January. So the first two books that I read in December were Howl's Moving Castle and Castle in the Air by Diana Wynne Jones. I read these because I was looking for something really light and fluffy and fun, and Carrie from Carrie Can Read had suggested them as good books for that. Really good, comfort books, and I did like them. They are definitely really high on humor. If you're familiar with the Howl's Moving Castle Ghibli movie, the book is, to me, quite distinctly different from that. I think the movie smoothed over a lot of plot points and changed a couple of things, especially like some of the characterization of Howl and Sophie. They are quite a bit different in the books. They're pepperier, I guess I would say. They're just not quite the same as the versions from the movie, which is totally fine. I definitely think that if you read Howl's Moving Castle, it would be good to try and interpret it separately from the movie, which is what I did. Obviously, some of the movie did kind of filter into my interpretation of the characters, like how I visualized them. But for the most part, I kind of view them as two pretty different things. In the book, we did get a lot more of Sophie's relationship with her sisters and her family and the way that she kind of gets to where she is. So that was really cool. I also felt like we got a little bit more world building in the book. We got more information on the Witch of the Waste, as well as some more information on Howl. His origins were definitely distinctly different from his origins in the movie. So that was really interesting. I know I'm trying to view them separately, but then I keep comparing them. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was whimsical and fun, definitely very funny. So then I went ahead and read the second book in the trilogy, which is Castle in the Air. The main character in this book actually isn't Sophie or Howl. It's a completely different guy, Abdullah, and he's a carpet merchant. Essentially, he gets roped into this giant adventure with genies. There's a princess that he wants to rescue and all those sorts of things. And then Sophie and Howl make cameo appearances later. So they are definitely in it, but don't really expect the story to be 100% about them. I don't want to say anything else because it could get into spoilers, so I'm going to go ahead and leave that there. While I did enjoy it, I didn't enjoy it enough to continue with the series. The third book, I believe, does the same kind of thing where the main character is somebody else, completely different. So not Abdullah, because not him. So it's a different main character again, and then I believe later in the book there would be cameo appearances from Sophie and Howl, but I just didn't really feel like continuing with it, so I didn't. Instead, I went ahead and picked up the Gwenevere Deception by Kirsten White, which if you've seen my best books of 2021 video, then you've heard me talk about this before. But basically, it's a retelling of the King Arthur story, but from Guinevere's perspective, and Gwenevere is a changeling, so she has a lot of mysterious backstory, and some of the other interpretations of the characters are also a little bit different. Lancelot is pretty distinct, but also very similar to the original Lancelot character. I, in general, love King Arthur type things. Anything that's a King Arthur retelling, I am usually pretty excited about. And I know from previous books that I love Kirsten White, and this is definitely my favorite book by her so far. I loved her writing style in it, I love the characters in it, and I love the general overall plot. I have book 2. I can't wait to get started on it. It's called The Camelot Betrayal, and the last one is called The Excalibur Curse. I don't have that one yet. I am holding off on buying it until it hits paperback, just because I kind of prefer paperback most of the time. Overall, the Gwenevere Deception was fantastic, and if you like King Arthur or feminist retellings or that medieval sort of feeling with magic and things like that, then I would definitely recommend picking it up. The last thing I read in 2021 was Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shannon Mcguire. Or is it Shannon Mcguire? I don't know how to pronounce her name. I suspect I've been saying it wrong. But I'm going to go with Shannon. This is book 3, I think. I think this is book 3 in the Wayward Children series. If you don't know what that series is, basically there are infinite portal worlds, think Narnia. and Earth. And then each Wayward Children book follows a child or several children who go to a particular portal world and come back and have to deal with the consequences of that. So this one is definitely more of an ensemble type cast. I'm trying not to spoil anything so that if you haven't read any of the books, then you won't be spoiled for them. So basically it follows the daughter of someone who died in a previous book, but that daughter hadn't been born yet when the person died. So she came from the future in her world back to the current timeline, and she was like, hey, I need you to make my mom be alive again so that I can exist, because she's starting to like do the fade out of existence thing because of the time paradox. So the adventure follows basically resurrecting this person that died so that this new character can not cease to exist. I hope that made sense. So they go to a place called, is that a spoiler? Okay, I'm going to put a warning. Spoiler warning, maybe if you haven't read Every Heart a Doorway yet, this will probably, or if you're like partway through, what I'm about to say will probably tell you who it is that dies in Every Heart a Doorway. So if you don't want that, skip ahead. Okay. So they go to Confection, which is a world where basically everything is made out of food, mostly candy, and they have to fight like a despot, a candy-themed despot, and go and try and resurrect this character. It's very short, so I don't want to give too much away. This is probably my least favorite of the Wayward Children books so far. I don't know if I just wasn't vibing with it that day or if it was the world. Also, it was weird because I thought the girl who came from the future was going to be the main character, but she wasn't really. We didn't even really get her perspective that much. We mostly got the perspective of like the ensemble cast that goes with her, and that was kind of weird, but also fine. We got more of Cade, which I liked. I really like Cade as a character. We got more of Christopher, and we got introduced to a new character, Cora, who I also really enjoyed. I liked getting her backstory. I think that was the strongest part of this book, but Confection really wasn't doing it for me. I don't know why, but I just like couldn't sink into this world the same way that I sink into the world of the other Wayward Children books. So overall, this one was a little bit of a disappointment, but it was still quick, and I'm glad I read it for the introduction of the characters, and we got a little bit more information on how the rules of this multiverse work. In 2022, I started off quite strong with a reread that I knew I was going to love. I absolutely adored it the first time I read it, and I wanted to read it again because I plan on finishing the series this year, and I wanted a refresher. The book in this case is The Reader by Tracy Chee. This is one of my favorite YA fantasies of all time. It is so good. The world building is great. I love the characters. It's about a girl named Sephia who finds something called a book. And in this world, Kalana is what it's called, nobody reads. So Sephia doesn't know how to read, but she, through a long series of things, has this book and she learns how to read. She starts reading this book and it gives her really important information. And how the book is framed is that when she is reading the story, the inside of this book, The Reader, there will be like pages that look like different pages so that you know that she's reading a story from the book. And so it'll look like torn out or something like that so that you know that it's like meta. I really enjoyed that. Sometimes there are other things, like there are secret messages alongside the pages. There's also pirates. There are just so many things about this book that are so cool that I love so much. And again, look at the cover. This is one of the few books that I'm really glad I have in hardback. It's got those deckled edges. It's just so beautiful. Also in this book, why am I so bad at describing plots? Also in this book, her parents are dead. So she's trying to get revenge for her dead parents and for the loss of another parent-like figure. She's trying to find out what happened. She's trying to find out what the book is for. What does it do? Why can she read? There is definitely a lot going on in this book. In some ways, it's more like an adult fantasy. It does follow Sephia, who's a teenager, but it also follows some other people, and she's the only teenager among them. So like the rest of the cast, most of the rest of the cast is adults, and then there's Sepia, and eventually one or two other teenagers that follow. But the world building and the politicking and stuff like that to me feels a little bit more adult fantasy. I really feel like it's a good, like, a crossover book. If you only read YA and you kind of want to start stepping towards adult, then this would be a good book for you. Or if you really like adult fantasy but want to see what some of YA has to offer, this is a great choice. In some ways, it reminds me a bit of Laini Taylor, the way that she describes things, but it's not quite as Laini Taylor-esque, if you know what I mean. I know some people would call Laini Taylor like purple prose. I wouldn't really, because to me, purple prose is kind of a negative aspect, and I don't mean it in that way. But it is a little bit more, it's not flowery, but it is like flower-scented. So it does have more lush descriptions. Tracy Chee achieves a really great balance of moving the story along, pulling in intrigue and plot elements and things like that, while also building a very lush, vibrant world with really beautiful description. So I don't actually like to binge series very much. I like to take breaks because it's a long story. But anyway, I don't really like to binge series. So between The Reader and its sequel, The Speaker, I wanted to read something else. I will say that The Reader is a little bit slow paced in that I really feel like it draws you in, and the way that she writes isn't like go, 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 go. It's a little bit more like methodical. And I really enjoyed that about it, but I know some people won't necessarily. So it is one that I definitely like to take my time with. So I wanted to contrast that, something really fast-paced and quick. So I picked up Tumbling Down, again by Shannon Mcguire. I believe this is book 5 in the Wayward Children series. I have been told that you can read them in any order, and I mostly agree with that. So I went ahead and picked that up from the library, and I loved it. This continues Jack and Jill's story. One of the twins comes back to Earth, to Eleanor West's home for wayward children, and she has a big problem. So she asks for aid from her fellow wayward children, and they go on a quest back to the moors where she can deal with this problem. I loved what the problem is in this book. This is one of my favorites. It did get a little bit corny for me at times, but overall I loved it. I love Jack and Jill. I think they're some of my favorite characters in the Wayward Children series, so following their story again was just a delight. I also like being back in the moors and exploring more of that world. I hope we can visit there again. We got more Cora, more Cade. And yeah, overall, I thought it was great. Another one of my favorites from the Wayward Children series, and the perfect palate cleanser for jumping into the sequel. And that was everything I read in those last 2 months. Going forward, I will be doing 1 month at a time again for a couple of different reasons. One, because these videos actually go much longer than I thought that they would, even though I don't read that quickly because I ramble on about things for a long time. So I'm going to be breaking them up again. Also, I am hopefully going to be doing a lot of reading in February because I have injured my foot and my job is only standing. So I cannot be doing that. And instead I will be home reading. Thank you for listening to me talk about all the books I read in December of last year and January of this year. Hi, Editing Cat here. Welcome to my desk. I just wanted to apologize real quick. Something happened when I was recording this video that caused it to have weird cutoffs, including my little ending there. So I just wanted to say thank you for bearing with any weird cutoffs throughout the video and also the wobbliness of this current screen. And have a beautiful night, universe.